Okay, so we are live. So hi everyone. For those of you on there, I'm Julie Latcham. I'm the Director of Career Services. If it's your first year, I haven't met you, just wanted to briefly introduce myself. And thank you all for attending our first Career Services Fall Firm Meet and Greet. We are joined today by Claire Hempel of Design Workshop. Claire is actually a graduate of UTSOA and is the principal of Design Workshop's Austin office. So Claire, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll stop sharing my screen so you can introduce yourself more and share more about Design Workshop.
Sure. All right. So bear with me. All right. Julie, good to go?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to speak with everybody today, and in this new virtual environment that we're doing. I've done one of these talks before in the beautiful conference room there in the School of Architecture. So this is just a different environment, but happy to meet you all, and I'll have my contact information at the end, and I'm sure reach out to Julie if you would like to get a hold of me after today's presentation. But like Julie mentioned, I am a graduate of the CRP program in the UTSOA, and I graduated in 2012. So it's been a very quick 8 years. My background is in landscape architecture before I got my graduate degree. And I've been practicing since 2002. And so I'm a Texan, born and raised, grew up in Houston. I got my undergrad in landscape architecture at the Harvard on the Bayou, also known as LSU, and moved back to Texas to practice. I worked in Houston for some small firms, moved up to Dallas just so I didn't have to live in Houston for the entirety of my life, and had a lot of fun working in Dallas. And I moved just before they started work on Clyde Warren Park. So unfortunately, I didn't get to experience that life, but I really loved living in an urban city like Dallas, where I could ride my bike on the Katy Trail, which is a former rail line that they've converted to a bike and ped trail. Really fantastic addition to that city. And look forward to this November's bond election when we might get some of those here in Austin. Just a quick plug for that. So currently, after I'm working at Design Workshop, of course, and I started as an intern there. Intern is kind of in quotes because I was an older intern back in 2011. And as I graduated in 2012, I stayed. I have always had always envisioned and dreamed of working at Design Workshop. It's a firm that's been around. We celebrated our 50th anniversary last year, and I'll go into the why of Design Workshop. But just to start off and say, I love the work that we do. I feel like it spans such a broad breadth of the discipline of landscape architecture, urban design, and planning, which I'll go into, and that all of the work and the studies that you all are doing is in a really pivotal moment where we can influence outcomes for a better world. And so it's just exciting to be a part of that. So I am also serving as the vice chair of the City of Austin Planning Commission. I started last July, and that too has been such an exciting, humbling initiative to be a part of a city that is going through incredible changes, as you all are aware. Our new land development code, if we can ever get through this hurdle that we're in now, and not to mention just balancing the need for housing, the growing need of people moving here, and then thinking about displacement of those that have been here for a very long time. So a lot of challenges that the city of Austin is going through. And I'm glad to speak with you all today about the work that we're doing, and also talk about future careers at Design Workshop. Yes, I will we can come back to this, but I will plug that we are hiring for many positions throughout our 8 offices right now. So just keep that in mind. And please let any friends that you know who have graduated already know that we are hiring. And I'll go into the why you would want to work for Design Workshop now. Okay, why is
That's great news that we have some hiring opportunities. So
yeah. Okay, so I'll give an overview of Design Workshop, who we are and where we've been. I do want to go into our legacy design practice and how that sets our firm apart, and then what that looks like in practice with some of our projects. And then I want to open it up for discussion, and hopefully you all have some good questions for me. So who is Design Workshop? So like I mentioned, we were started in 1969, 51 years old now. And we were born from academia. So our original founders were professors in North Carolina, and we're also practicing, but they got an opportunity to help plan a community in Aspen, which was a sleepy little town at the time, not the Aspen as you know it today. And so they, that is why our oldest office is located in Aspen. And it's been a really great little lab for looking at these ski towns and learning how to do urban design in a sense where people can walk and be close to all of their needs in these small spaces that are so environmentally sensitive. And so we've kept that spirit of academia and the importance of it alive in our work for the last 50 years. And Joe Porter and Don Ensign were 2 of our founders. And Don Ensign just recently passed away about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And so his legacy of the work that he had been doing in being world leaders in the design of the built environment and conservation of natural landscapes is really living on, and then something that I'm sure he would be proud of today. And so our vision is to design these landscapes of extraordinary quality that create a legacy for future generations. And that's really important in that Design Workshop, unlike some firms, and I'm not knocking the other firms, but we don't technically have a look. So we are able to work throughout the world and really create spaces within the context of those places. And I'll go into a little bit more about how we do that. So leadership is of utmost importance in the folks that we are looking to hire. And the reason why is we want those that are coming into Design Workshop to lead in their own way. So this doesn't mean that we're just looking to hire the next CEO. It really takes a team of leaders to create quality projects. And we also want to be leaders in our industry, in thought, and we strive for this idea of servant leadership, which means you lead by helping your team, you lead by helping your clients, and Robert Greenleaf has a really good book on servant leadership if you haven't read it yet. So that's the spirit of collaboration and teamwork that we bring to all of our projects and within each of our studios. And again, we are lifelong learners. That is something that if you were to work at Design Workshop, we have something called a 5-year plan. And no matter if you come in fresh out of school or if you've been practicing for a little while, you strive to complete this 5-year plan. And all it means is it outlines a series of certifications and milestones that we should be achieving in our career as planners, landscape architects. So it includes things like achieving certification, achieving licensure, and just instilling that that love of learning, and it never stops. So we do support those to go back to graduate school. And we believe that even if that person doesn't eventually come back to design workshop, that you are furthering your career. And most people have come back to design workshop, I will say. My fellow principal, Connors Ladner, in our office is completing his master's at UT right now. He chose to do human dimensions of organization, which was a really interesting complement to landscape architecture. So we're excited that he was able to get his graduate degree, and that we're excited for him to come back full time for sure. So those who we hire at Design Workshop, we really look for those who are generalists, meaning one day you might be working on an urban park, and then the next day you might be helping with a vision plan for a nature center or a series of nature centers. And that is a very realistic look at a week of someone at Design Workshop. A broad range of skill sets from AutoCAD to graphics to writing is very important. And we're looking for people people who are really curious. So it's a broad range of skill sets. We have people that do focus a bit more on urban design and planning, but can also jump in and help with more of the landscape architecture side. We encourage balance, a balance of work and your personal life, a balance of the types of projects that we're doing. It's just a balance all around that we strive for, and that we are also striving and cultivating this idea of diversity of cultures, diversity of offices, diversity of thought. So, and that really reflects the communities in which we're working in too, being able to bring in a diversity and have that thought lead project ideas and alternatives. So under content, every project that we do, we're thinking of it as a project that will be a legacy for future generations. So it's not just something that looks beautiful. It is something that the community, the stakeholders, even if it's just a residence, that is a timeless landscape. It's a timeless space. We're strong believers in what gets measured will be done. So we have a very stringent metrics process for our projects, and I'll go into more about what that means. And then we deliver quality. So this is highly important about the kind of work that our clients are seeing, how we manage that internally. We have two technical principals within our firm that oversee the quality control for a lot of our technical documentation throughout the office. So our reputation is built on the quality of our work, and we believe strongly that that's a pivotal part of the process. And then there's the business side to what we do. So with the virtual world we're all living in right now, Design Workshop has been practicing that to some degree for a long time. So we have 8 offices that span all the way. We span 3 time zones from Los Angeles to Raleigh. Raleigh being our newest. Austin, we have been here for 8 years. And we have always said, even before we had Zoom and GoToMeeting and everything, that we were one office with long hallways. And when we put teams together for projects, we have always pulled the talent of the team from various offices. So we often cross-office collaborate based on who's the best team for that job. And with everybody going virtual now, that's just made things a little bit easier and people a little bit more accepting of the work and the collaboration that can come from multiple offices. We really support this idea of entrepreneurial spirit. We are looking for people who are, like I mentioned, curious, that have ideas, that want to execute those ideas. So I've been managing our Austin office for a number of years now. And our CEO, Kurt Culbertson, always says to hire people that are smarter than you. And I fully believe in that. You don't want me in any kind of graphics program. And I fully know that the new blood that we get in our offices really contributes to that entrepreneurial spirit, this idea of, hey, I'm really active in this local organization. It would be great to get more involved, and perhaps that leads to new and exciting project work. You want project work that you can get excited about, right? So that comes from a curiosity and a love and a passion for things that are outside of the office walls. And then we employ sustainable business practices. What I mean by that is some of our benefits speak to this. We don't pay for any parking in our offices. Currently I'm living quite a few miles away from our downtown office, and I have to pay my own parking if that's how I choose to get to work. However, if you were to choose to ride a bus, ride a bike, we'll pay for, we'll supplement that transit fare, or we have a stipend for those who ride their bike to work for a monthly to fix tires and things like that. So we really want to practice what we're preaching, and we do that through some of our benefits. So in talking about our practice, we really want to push the envelope and push our clients into thinking that out. I hate this phrase, so I'm not going to use it, outside the box. Try to avoid that phrase, but we really want clients to think much bigger. That's where you make strides in making positive change, right? So our version of this thinking is called legacy design. And the principles of legacy design are that it's comprehensive, it's inclusive, it's very transparent, and there's accountability. And so the rings that you see here on the right side of the screen are environment, community, economics, art. These are the areas of focus that when we begin a project and we're having this visioning discussion with our clients, that we're seeking to name or speak to goals that fit within each of these 4 focus areas. Because when they come together, they're measurable and actionable and have been implemented. This is what makes projects truly legacy for generations to come. We show this cute little cartoon that often when you kick off a client or a project with a room full of stakeholders or client members or even team members, you're describing one thing and everybody has a different picture in their head of what that thing is. And what we're talking about here is a vision. So if I say something like the wall is white, well, everybody in that room is going to have a different picture of how tall the wall is or what shade of white it is. And we need to get together on the same foot if we're all heading towards the same goals, right? So through our metrics process and the way that we manage the projects, we get everybody aligned on the same path forward to the end goals. And that's really important in starting our projects off on the right foot. So going into what this means in project work, you can see the life of a project outlined in this graphic where we have this, what we call a strategic kickoff with our team. We talk about the dilemma for the project. So what are we trying to solve? Can we say that in 2 sentences? And then how are we proposing to solve that? So just like in academia, in a thought challenge, you posit your potential solution, and then the alternatives that you're coming up with kind of are bounced off of that initial proposal. And we outline critical success factors, which are different than goals. So critical success factors to a client might be, this needs to be ready for me to move in by X date, or we really need to make 75% of our users thrilled with this end product. So it might be those things are not necessarily goals, but that the project needs to achieve in order for the client or user groups to view it as a success. So just like in the projects you're doing in school, we investigate existing conditions. That analysis piece is really important. And this is where our metrics kick in, is we're looking at other precedent studies and understanding our benchmark for what the project is exhibiting today. And then through our precedent studies, at least those that are successful, understanding what is the measure for what we need to achieve, or even go beyond. So the baselines, the goals, metrics all tied together. And then we use those metrics to come up with design alternatives. So each of those alternatives should respond to the metrics. And through that method, that is how we are creating fully transparent decision making. So we're not asking our clients or the community to pick something simply because it's prettier or more aesthetically pleasing. There are elements to where they can look at how it's performing based on your own personal values and choose the alternative that makes the most sense for that individual. So the end part of this diagram is, after going through alternatives analysis and picking a preferred alternative and implementing that, whether that's a set of construction documents or adopting a plan, a community plan, implementation is really critical, because you don't want your recommendations just to sit on the proverbial shelf because they weren't detailed enough or too pie in the sky. So we really have an eye towards implementation on all of our projects. And what we often are not able to do, but would love to do more frequently, and have looked at partnering with universities and other organizations when we can, is this idea of monitoring the project. So how is the project performing years after we have finished the design and gone? And we have several methods that we've been able to do that with. Landscape Architecture Foundation case studies are a really great way when we're able to partner with them for the research to be done to understand how those projects are performing and improve upon them in future project work. So this idea of iteration or rapid cycling is really important. It's just getting all of the ideas on the table from every vantage point. It's not just top down. We're wanting everybody on the team, even our project assistants and marketing team. We've had really great ideas come from the vantage point of those who aren't in this field or in this work every day. And so much like the diagram that I showed earlier, when we're in the alternatives phase, we're going through our strategic kickoff, researching alternatives. Design review is a really important piece of what we do at Design Workshop. And we've had some great tools recently to do this virtually, but it's pinning up on the wall, getting out of the computer, hand sketching, drawing, Post-its, sticky notes, however you want to express getting your ideas across. But this is a really critical part of design. Is you can often want to shelter and say, I don't want anybody to see this design because I think it's great and I really don't want to change it. But this is what makes the design better, is when people are asking really tough questions. You learn to defend your answers, or you learn how to make it better. The design review process I had not experienced until I came to Design Workshop, and it's just a part of teamwork and collaboration. So then on depending on the project, we're going through public meetings or client deadlines. And it's just constant making the project better. I mentioned this earlier, but dilemma and thesis, this is where we're looking to understand what the challenge for the project is. And this helps set up the vision statement as well. So what's standing in the way of a project's potential for success? It's part of that storytelling for the project. And then the thesis is an assertion about what that project outcome will be, that is tested through all the alternatives and metrics process. So this is a snapshot of a tool that we've created to help teams get aligned on the metrics at the outset of a project. Because we've done this for so many years, there are certain metrics that come up quite frequently, and we're looking for metrics within the focus areas of environment, economics, community, and art. And lately, we've been trying to understand this equity piece too. And we're folding that in more and more in community, but it is such an important piece that it's almost its own ring within our 4 rings. This is a scan of an SKO or a kickoff, where the teams print these out very large, 24 by 36, and you're working either with your internal team or your clients or your entire team if it's a large project to, from the outset, understand what the project is aiming to achieve. So stakeholder engagement is a part of that transparent and inclusive process for legacy design. This is something that there's several team members, a design workshop. We've written a best practices book for stakeholder engagement. We have so many great minds that have wonderful ideas on how to engage public, and we've been able to pivot quite quickly during the pandemic times as to how to do this online. So we're always learning new ways to engage the public. What are the best practices? Who are we not reaching? Who are we not speaking to? And so from the outset of every project that will involve heavy and stakeholder engagement, we come up with a plan that outlines every meeting, how we're going to get people there, what the agenda will cover, what the outcomes in the meeting will be. And so it's a really well thought out process, but these meetings don't come off in just a week's time. They take a lot of pre-planning. And there's so many ways to do this, but it's critical to engage the community members who are not coming out, who may feel like they don't have a voice, who may not have the time, but will be pivotal users of the project in the future. So we've deployed a lot of different ways to get people out to meetings, meeting people where they are, use of ambassadors. So every project is different, but this is such a critical part to what we do. It's inherent in our name, workshop. We want to get everybody around the table to think through ideas. And we often go through this process of questions where we start dreaming big. Let's put all ideas on the table. Don't limit yourself. Working through expanding those ideas. And then once we get to a plan, starting to think through how to refine those ideas, prioritize them. We often are faced with budgets that we have to adhere to, and how we implement those ideas moving forward. When we're able to have in-person meetings, we have really great technology. Keypad polling. I know a lot of times we can use our smartphones as well, but there's some communities where we can't just assume that everybody has access to a smartphone or would be able to pay for texts during a meeting. But keypad polling is a way that we you hand out what we call a garage door opener or a clicker to every person that comes in the room. We have a PowerPoint presentation, much like what you're watching now, and you can ask questions. They answer in real time. We get the feedback. We are able to show it to the entire room. And this helps to negate the effect of the loudest voices having the microphone and hijacking the meeting. You can actually see what everybody's thinking in the room without having that one person who may just be speaking the loudest. A chip game. So we do a lot of park work. We don't have to just use this on parks, but it's been a really fun way to engage people of all ages in something that when you're planning for a park, it should be fun. It feels almost like a board game. You can see it in the picture here, right? This is a park that we did in Louisiana. We had neighborhood people gather around the table who had disparate ideas and work together to create a parks plan. And the way that we used these chips was that we scanned all of the boards in at the end and made a heat map. So as a collective, we could understand where program elements needed to go for the community. This is an example of after we were able to put all of those plans together, the programming for this park, and coming up with various ideas. And this is all built on public engagement. These were some ideas that evolved from those programming diagrams, and then the final plan that moved forward into the first phase of construction. And then after the plan is done, how do we understand what will be in the first phase? So an example of this is, it's called participatory budgeting. We had a dollar amount for the different elements within the park, and we gave everybody a handful of what we called pony bucks, and people were able to pay for the elements that they wanted the most. And so we synthesized all of that data and came out with the most important phase one priority elements for the park through community involvement. And of course, engaging our youth, the future users of these spaces, is of utmost importance. And a lot of times it can be done through play, but it's really important that children are engaged, and that we're thinking of moms or families who may not have access to childcare, but we want them to come to the meeting. So we need to think through a lot of different segments of society and make it as easy as possible for them to come out to these meetings. And so I wanted to touch on a project or a series of projects that we've been working on in the Houston area. This is Midtown in Houston, and if you haven't visited, Midtown is one of my favorite places, not just in Houston, but in the United States. It's an emerging district located just south of downtown, between the museum district and downtown. The light rail line runs through it, and it, since the 1990s, has been changing and growing within this really excellently located district. And it's also the home to Beyonce's parent studio. So we were part of a team back before I started a design workshop, like 2010 or so, that was looking at a district plan for Midtown. And the district plan, you can see it on Houston Galveston Area Council's website. It's called the Livable Center Study for the Ensemble Station. It focused around the light rail station, but as a node of activity, but getting people to the station and what those streets needed to feel like. This became much more of a district study in streetscapes and urban design. And we've been working with this district ever since. And so Bagby Street is one of those capital improvement projects that came from the plan. This is a street, you can see the before picture, 4 lanes of traffic, heavily residential, not a lot going on, but it was this connector from downtown out to a major highway. And so cars would zoom through here. It's one way, but didn't carry a lot of traffic. It was just high speed, very dangerous for pedestrians. So we went through a master planning process, and the Bagby Street renovation was spurred by the need to redo a major stormwater line that was underneath the road. But through our investigation, our metrics, and knowing that this could be a better place for people, not just cars, we made the case that Bagby Street itself did not need to be 4 lanes. We were reduced to 2 lanes of traffic and some parking, and we're able to expand the the pedestrian realm for the streets and the neighbors abutting Bagby Street. So there's this dilemma about starting with how do you make a Midtown a place when you've got this commuter street cutting through that serves a function, but there's also this creating a sense of place. And so our thesis that we started with was by creating a quality system, our public open space along the entire stretch of Bagby, we're going to still accommodate the transportation need that's there, but focus added value near potential redevelopment parcels. So this was one of the projects that really kickstarted the renaissance of Midtown as it is today. We had a really thorough metrics process at the beginning. We measured heat island effect, how much shade was existing on the corridor, how we could provide a brand or an image for Bagby Street, what this needed to be to accommodate stormwater, which is its primary function underground, and then how this would benefit the district in an economic way. So this project has been completed for a number of years now, but and so these shade trees aren't staked anymore and they're quite a bit bigger. But it's become this really iconic signature street within Midtown and really for the city of Houston. There's been increases in rental rates along the street, new businesses located here. We created a lot more seating and gathering areas, which was really important outside of some of these new restaurants and nodes along Bagby Street. Better night lighting, the health of the trees that were existing along the street was improved. And we're just creating a more walkable, bikeable space. And one of the signature elements of Bagby is this rain garden that runs along most of the street that we still are actively monitoring how much the water quality is improved. So the runoff from Bagby Street goes into the rain gardens before it then goes underground, and we're filtering off a lot of pollutants from that. We looked at sandblasting in the number of gallons that are treated during a 100-year storm event, 46,300 gallons. And then we've created these custom elements that are proprietary to Midtown now that are really iconic for this district. This is former Mayor Anise Parker, and this was the first Green Roads certified project in the state of Texas and led to the Great Streets Initiative in Houston. So now more of these streetscapes are performative and creating a sense of place. So we had a showcase of letting people learn how it was functioning and had these really great signs made for Bagby. So go visit if you haven't already. And there's a lot of other design workshop projects within Midtown as well, including several parks. So the next case study I wanted to go over was Republic Square, which you should be familiar with. It's here in Austin, on between 5th and 6th or 4th and 5th streets, right off of Guadalupe and by the courthouse. So we started on this project back in 2012, I believe. And DWG, one of our fellow landscape architects here in town, did the first phase, which you can see is this southwestern corner. And that's where the heritage oaks, and they're called the auction oaks for Austin, where when Austin was getting parceled out back in the 1800s, that land was auctioned off under these oaks. So they did the improvements here at the southwest corner, but you can see from this existing plan, the space was really dead. There was, these cut through sidewalks. It was very hot. I think they had a fountain that had been turned off. Just not a very inviting space at all. And it wasn't served very well by the adjacent land uses of parking garage, surface parking lot, which has transformed since this was done. So we did the master plan, a lot of community involvement, late night meetings, council readings, and it was adopted. We used a lot of stakeholder outreach to understand which concepts people liked. So it's always important to come up with different concepts, but they all need to respond back to those initial metrics and goals that we set up. Where we landed, if you've been out there and kind of recognize it from a plan view, was this idea of theater in the round, which is this bottom left idea. So it was actually a compound of two of the concepts coming together. And today it's just over an acre in size, but we've created a lot of more usable, welcoming space for a lot of different events. If you're just going out there to have lunch during normal times, there's food trucks lined up on the south side, and you can go grab lunch and sit on the wall or go out on the lawn. This restaurant that's open at the top right, that is open now. One of my coworkers went there the other day and said it's really great if you want to get a little cheese plate for lunch. Farmers market, I don't know about during normal times. They are set up out there every Saturday. And this park has spurred on, I would say, millions of dollars worth of investment surrounding it. Not to say that that wouldn't have happened anyway, but the desire for having open space, especially in an area that's densifying like Austin, this space becomes really vital for those that are living in an urban environment. So this is pre-COVID times, lots of classes. Austin Parks Foundation and Downtown Austin Alliance heavily program this site. Lots of free classes to get people out and using it, movies in the park, etc. And then an interesting picture I pulled from the internet of during COVID times, kind of like Domino Park in New York, having these separate spaces, but still being able to go out and enjoy the open air. And from a landscape architect's point of view, the importance of open space during these times has just been highlighted even more with the need. So wanted to talk a little bit about our studio life. We have 8 offices, like I mentioned, oldest being in Aspen. This is a shot of our Denver office. And we've got Tahoe, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Austin, and now Raleigh. And so the spirit of what you see here, of everybody gathering around during a pinup, and sharing thoughts and ideas is something that's very important to all of our offices, even if they might look a little bit different. Design reviews, we mentioned earlier. Sometimes we don't have time. We're really busy with deadlines. We can do a drive-by design review, as we call it, where somebody can come up on their own time and be able to comment on boards. And it might be solving a specific problem, or it might just be about how does this graphic layout look to you, but a really important part of our process. Meeting with your team regularly. So we have these small group team meetings all the time. This is a shot of our Houston office. We recently just moved to a new, bigger space, but this is located right next to the light rail line in Houston. This is Jamie Fogel, one of our technical principals, and he is a really great reviewer. Design workshop, we have set up our own standard for construction documentation, technical documentation, which you see open just behind Jamie. But it's almost like a textbook that we're able to teach people our methodology from laying out your CAD drawings. It is a step-by-step guide, and we really adhere to that when we're putting out drawings, because it leads to the great quality that we're known for. And then we are always seeking new knowledge. We often have learning sessions. You can see some of those listed here. Learning from a wide variety of other practitioners, not just landscape architects. you can see here we're learning from transportation planners, we're learning from economic planners, soils. We really need to be generalists, like I mentioned earlier, and know everything you can in our field, because that's what our clients are looking for. And then every year we have a symposia. Sometimes we have two, and we invite practitioners and professionals to talk about their work. And we've been doing this since 2006. And I was looking at this slide this morning. I think it's really interesting and great. As you can see, the slight change in where we are today, or in 2019, we had a wonderful symposium on social equity, and really asking ourselves these tough questions that we're still asking today and trying to get better at. But I think it went from just learning about streetscape design and maybe planting design to learning more about the urban environment, to making these spaces better, to resilience and social equity, like the big challenging questions of our time that we as landscape architects, urban designers, and planners should be thinking about, because we're able to influence so many parts of the world. We have a faculty in residence. Every so often, most recently, we worked with Professor Baldev Lambda of Temple University. They are working with Design Workshop on some research question or challenge that they're seeking to do, maybe a piece of writing that they're looking to accomplish. And they're able to engage with many of our offices at Design Workshop. So that's been a really great experience in working with the several that I have since I've been here in 2011. And then just a glimpse into how we work internally. We have all of this great research and work that we've done, and unless we're cataloging it somewhere, it kind of goes when the project's over. So we have this internal portal where we are uploading our research, our content, and keeping it alive with all the great work that we're doing, and others that we're doing. So if there's a great article, informative article that somebody finds and it links to a wiki page that we've created, it's uploaded there for other people to be able to use. And we have one of the advantages of being a larger firm of 130 people with 8 offices and such a wide breadth of experience is the tools that we've created. So it might have started out as one project manager's tool that they always defaulted to because it was really easy to use and save them time. That then can lead to becoming a template for other project managers to use. So we've done that with legacy design, our project management templates, metrics, et cetera. And then I talked a little bit about how we're sharing knowledge through either the presentations that we're giving internally, or symposia, or other content we've created. And then how we're measuring metrics. Each office has their own toolkit or metrics backpack with things like you can measure speed. You can measure the decibels out at a site. When we're talking about how hot is the sidewalk, we've got a thermometer where we can check that temperature. Some of our tools here. And then this is some of our team before we did the Republic Square Master Plan out on site to understand how loud Guadalupe is, how loud 4th Street is, how fast cars are going, and this all leads to interventions and making a better environment for people. The Landscape Architecture Foundation has recognized a lot of our work through being able to partner with them and universities on studying some of our cases after they've been built. So this is, just as an aside, is a really great resource for a lot of different project types. If you're looking for precedent studies that go into a lot of detail about the how, why, how much it costs, what were the challenges, et cetera. And you can see at the bottom left some of the universities we've partnered with, including your University of Texas. And these are the projects that we've been fortunate enough to work through, the most recent being Bagby Street. And then we've also partnered quite often with ULI. Bagby Street is one case study, again, that we've done with them. But we've also done Daybreak in Utah as a master plan community, was an older case study. Also a good resource if somebody has a ULI membership. And then we are very active with ASLA and have Emily McCoy in our Raleigh office help write this guidebook for metrics that ASLA has on their website. And then we're always looking to publish and get our thoughts out. This was an Architectural Worlds magazine that Allison Mendenhall in our Denver office helped put together, from many of the leaders at Design Workshop providing content. Current leaders and former leaders were able to pull together, and this was published in China, I believe, and we had another copy published in the States. So I've been talking for a while. I thought I would wrap up and open it up for questions. My contact information is here, but I did want to put up on the screen just some rolling work of ours. So hang with me while I switch, and I guess we can, are you gonna do questions through chat, or how are we gonna do that, Julie?
Yeah, so y'all can feel free to raise your hand or honestly just join the conversation if you have a question now, or you can put it in the chat if you don't feel comfortable doing that. So yeah, thank you so much, Claire. That was wonderful. Gave a lot of insight to what y'all are doing. It's some amazing work.
Great.
But yeah, don't be shy, guys.
We have one hand raised, and that is Aspen Wilkins.
Hi, I noticed that you have a master's in community regional planning, which is what I'm studying at the moment, but my background is in public affairs and not landscape architecture. So I was wondering if there are positions open for people who have an educational background like mine.
Yeah, we do have some folks that are solely planners, and I would encourage everybody to apply if there's an interest in working for Design Workshop. We do a lot of planning work in the Austin and Houston offices, Raleigh, Aspen, and Denver, and all of our offices are doing planning work. So it's a really vital part of what we do, and it's a very broad spectrum of the type of planning, from system-wide park planning to conservation planning. And even we have a strategic services group that looks at the economic side of projects. So I would encourage you to apply if there's an interest.
I have a quick question. And it's, do you find that many people that work within maybe the Austin office or the LA office transition from office to office throughout the nation?
Yeah, we've had a number of people that start in one office, and for whatever reason, whether they're desiring to move to a different scenery or family brings them there, or they're wanting to do slightly different project work, we've had a number of people that move. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, but even with the way we're all working right now, that's become even easier to do in some regards.
Sure.
And we often have people, so say we're just a little less busy than some other offices. Those folks can go and help offices that may have a lot of milestones and deadlines coming up. So a lot of cross-office collaboration that way too. And if we can, for instance, we had someone in our office just went out to Aspen for 2 weeks to help out with some projects out there, which isn't a bad gig.
Yeah, no doubt. Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question as well. So
Yeah.
I would like to know what is the dynamic of the firm for getting clients? Like I know some firms that have a lot of offices around the country, maybe distribute the country in regions, or like what is your approach?
Can you state that question again? I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch it all.
Like the some offices that have like different locations within a country
Mm-hmm.
have different approaches on getting clients or projects, like depending if, I don't know, the Austin office covers Texas and Louisiana, or like how does that work?
Yeah, great question. We don't segment it up like that. Of course, there are sometimes things that make sense, like Texas covering Texas work. But if there is a principal who might have that skill set, um, and or relationships can bring people to different areas. So right now I'm working on a project in Atlanta on the Atlanta Beltline, which geographically is closer to Raleigh. But it was our relationship with the team that enabled us in Austin to work there. And then to the entrepreneurial spirit I mentioned earlier, if there was someone who was really desiring to do work in their hometown. We've had that a lot of you just desire to make your hometown a better place. We fully encourage you to look for project work there, and if it makes sense for us to do that as a firm, we'll support you. So we had some people in our Denver office that were from Detroit, and we're really wanting to make Detroit a better place and their reemergence from debt as a city. And we've done some really fantastic, meaningful work out in Detroit because of that relationship.
Thank you. That's interesting.
Hi, I am a landscape architecture student in my second year, and I was curious about what conversations your office is having around the role development can play in gentrification of an area, and are there strategies that your firm uses to engage the community after the project has been built? And is this a concern that community members have brought up during your outreach meetings? And just sort of generally, like, what is your process around that?
Yeah, so that's definitely a question that we need to ask ourselves when we're doing this kind of work. Speaking from my recent Atlanta Beltline experience, we are engaging the community that will be affected. In fact, we had a public meeting just a week or two ago where we were talking about this trail coming through economically disadvantaged neighborhood. And there were questions about, this is going to drive my home price up. I won't be able to afford to live here. That client in particular has knows that it is a concern of the neighborhoods that the trail goes through, and has created an affordable housing initiative through their organization. But from every project, we need to be asking those questions, having a consultant on our team that can speak to diversity, equity, and inclusivity is something that we're starting to include more and more. There's a park project that will be starting here towards the end of the year in Austin, and that's a really critical piece to that park. So a lot of times it's thinking about the impacts of economic improvement to an area or gentrification, but also in areas that have advantages, thinking through how are we bringing people that may not feel welcome into those areas. What are the questions that we need to be asking? Who do we need to reach out to? And we don't always have those answers as landscape architects, but know that you have partners on your team that know those communities very well. So it allows us to work in a lot of different communities when we have local partners that are trusted within the community, and we can work with them, making sure that we're using appropriate language, that we're asking the right questions, and always questioning ourselves of we're improving the community, but we're improving it for whom, and being really transparent about that and having those conversations with our clients.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I was sort of curious about how many projects that you guys run at one time, like on sort of a regular basis.
Yeah. So in Austin, we have 11 staff members. We probably have, guessing, 20 to 30 active projects. We have maybe 10 under construction right now actively. The way you're able to work on that kind of a project load is that every project is at a different stage. So that helps. But as I mentioned earlier, we are looking to hire because we have some really exciting projects starting soon. That everything from park vision plans to streetscapes to some planning projects as well.
Hi, my name is also Claire. I'm a first year landscape architecture master's student at UT, and I am wondering what I can do just a mere 8 weeks into my journey to kind of prepare for working for a firm like yours or someone else.
Yeah, I think, well, seeking out an internship, of course, but also the Urban Land Institute Heinz competition for those who are first year, or I guess any year in school, for the School of Architecture, I think is such a great way to meet professionals in the Austin area and learn what it feels like to work on an interdisciplinary team with architects and planners and landscape architects in a very quick way. So that's something that I help to arrange the mentor volunteers every year. And we've personally hired at least 2 or 3 people from that process. So seeking out opportunities like that, I would also say getting involved in the Austin community. So you start growing your network is a really important way. And whatever city you eventually move to, from that civic side or following your passion side, growing into a business development role is not something we don't learn that in school, unfortunately. But those are really great ways where you can get involved, test out your leadership skills, and I think bring that to wherever you might want to work, because it's not just design workshop that's looking for leadership. That's such an important role and skill set that takes practice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely second the networking and getting involved in the community. But anybody else have any specific questions for Claire? All right. Well, if nobody has, I'll give you one more chance. Anybody else real fast have any other questions? All right. Well, Claire, thank you so much for being part of this discussion and sharing about Design Workshop. I don't know if you have any last minute comments that you want to say to the students or.
I'm just really proud to have graduated from this school, and I'm excited to see how it's grown since I've graduated and a lot of the initiatives that UTSOA is doing. So really stick with it. And I look forward to meeting you. I'm available for coffee if anybody would like to do that and talk more one-on-one. I'm very open to doing that, and just love being involved with the school, and it's an advantage to being so close. Our office is just a stone's throw away, really. But thanks to Julie for allowing me to talk with you all, and definitely reach out to me with any questions or anything that you have.
All right. Thanks so much, Claire. We appreciate it.
Thank you.